Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 Czech musical masterpieces I couldn't live without. Ooh, I've been waiting for this one for a long time. In some respects, this is my favorite of all the national lists because, the Czech lands are such a tiny little part of Europe, and they spit out such an incredible range of musicians. Really stunning. It's astonishing. It really is. An incredibly musical place. And if you go to Prague, of course it's touristy now, and they do Don Giovanni every 15 seconds because Mozart was there. They're always doing like Mozart concerts and things like that. But the range and amount of music is just astonishing, and their pride in their musical accomplishments is marvelous. And it's just fabulous. So here is my list of 16 Czech musical masterpieces by 16 different composers. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them from the Baroque period all the way up to like now. It's really kind of fabulous. It's one of the great musical traditions. It's as great as any place else, but it comes from such a tiny community of intensely musical people. So yes, good for them. And here they are. We start with Zelenka, Jan Dismas Zelenka, one of the kookiest and most distinctive and interesting Baroque composers in the universe. His Missa votiva. Just pick one. He wrote 20 some odd masses. They're all wonderful. I've yet to hear anything by him that was not somehow interesting or characteristic. He writes melodies that are catchy, which is, for Baroque period, pretty extraordinary. He had a genuine harmonic sense. Even back in the day, this switch between major and minor that's so characteristic of Slavic music generally, well, he did that. And he liked syncopated rhythms, which, of course, we get from Czech dance music, and he liked strange, irregular phrase lengths, and he was a master contrapuntist. His fugues were incredible. Even Bach was amazed. That's saying something, isn't it? So yeah, you got to do your Zelenka. And his masses and other works and his instrumental pieces, of which there are very few, a handful of trio sonatas and orchestral capriccios and other things. Oh gosh, it's all just fabulous. Then Dussek, Jan Ladislav Dussek. His piano sonata, Opus 77, which is subtitled L'Invocation, the Invocation. Dussek wrote some really cool piano music, some pre-Beethoven type piano music that's very, very evocative of what was going to come later, and this is one of the great ones. It's absolutely fabulous. You should hear it. If you don't know it, give it a shot. And then there's Krommer. I first encountered Krommer because he's a fabulous composer for wind instruments. But the reality, he wrote these, wind octets and sextets and things like that. The Czech tradition of wind music, Feldpartitas, as they were called in the days, outdoor woodwind music was really, really extraordinary. And it still is, because, you have the wind section of the Czech Philharmonic. The Czechs are known for their wind playing. But Krommer's wind music, beautiful as it is eclipsed by his symphonies, of which there are, we don't really know, 9 or 10 or something like that. I've chosen the 9th because they were all composed in around, 1780s, 90s, and 1800s. That's about when they mostly popped up. And the late ones become progressively more Czech sounding, especially in the minuets, or scherzos, if you want to call them that. He was actually a violinist, and he wrote hundreds of string quartets and other things, and his music is scarcely known. But CPO did a first-class series of his symphonies, and the 9th is, I think, outstanding among them. You really should hear it. It's a delightful Beethoven-era type symphony, full of its own distinctive characteristics. And after Krommer, Reicha. Yes, we have to do Reicha, don't we? Reicha was a FOB, a friend of Beethoven, and a wonderful visionary and experimental composer. He wrote overtures in 5/8 time and used quarter tones and all this stuff in the 1790s and early 1800s. He was the only teacher at the Paris Conservatory that Berlioz could tolerate, and he tolerated Berlioz, which was also saying something, and he invented the wind quintet. So let's give his wind quintets a shout out, shall we? There are 20-something of them. They're beautiful, beautiful works. full of interesting and quirky ideas, exquisitely scored, and everybody should have a couple discs of them. So just go get some. I mean, which ones doesn't make any difference. Just get a few and have a good time with them. Then there's Kalliwoda, who's kind of making a comeback. Oh, tiny comeback. He's got one digit of his pinky in the standard repertoire door, but he has been recorded by labels like CPO and MD&G, and he wrote a bunch of symphonies. I think there's seven of them so far. I think they've all been recorded, and they're very interesting. He's another one. These Czech composers, they don't have a lot of inhibitions, which is just a wonderful thing. I mean, they're full of juicy ideas and terrific melodic inspiration, and they just go for it. That's what makes them so much fun to listen to. I mean, one of his symphonies, I think it's the third, was based on an atonal fragment that his infant daughter plonked out on the piano one day, and he said, I'll make a symphony out of that. I mean, that's what's so much fun about this stuff. And his fifth symphony is magnificent, absolutely amazing, and it has this sort of slowish movement. It's not really a slow movement because it's kind of quick, but it has the most wonderful tune. It sounds like a little Tchaikovsky ballet thing. It's ya da 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 ya da 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 do 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 da da. Oh, it's great, absolutely great. And the finale, oh yeah, bum bum, ba chunka chunka do 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 ba da da da. I mean, it's just catchy and brilliant. It's amazing. So yes, that's a symphony you absolutely have to hear. Then Smetana. Okay, we're up to Smetana. We should probably do an opera, but I can't. Vlást. I mean, it's got to be there, right? It just has to be there. It's the ultimate orchestral Czech musical masterpiece of a patriotic or nationalistic nature, and I just would be crazy not to toss it in here. And if I don't, you will. So, you can do Smetana operas or something like that. Do The Devil's Wall, one of the lesser known ones. But another, Smetana was Smetana. He gave the Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic, or whatever it's called this week, he gave it a repertoire, a theatrical repertoire. It's phenomenal. Then after Smetana, there's Zelenka and Fibich. Fibich was sort of like Dvořák without the tunes, just as Metner is Rachmaninoff without the tunes. Fibich was a very solid composer, a very, very good composer. He actually had his Czech side, by which I mean his quirky weirdness side. He wrote 4 billion piano pieces about his mistress, describing every crevice of her body in little piano miniatures. So yes, there's something not right there, which is a good thing. But I chose his tone poem, The Tempest, or Overture, whatever you want to call it. It's Shakespeare's The Tempest, and it has a really, really good storm. I mean, you can't do a tempest without a tempest, and so many composers wrote tempests that are just tempests in a teapot. But no, Fibich is a very good storm in his sort of conservative Schumann-esque idiom, and it's a beautiful work. It's something that you probably haven't heard and will enjoy discovering. And actually, his tone poems are more fun than his symphonies. He wrote 3 symphonies, which are also lovely works, but they're not so immediately recognizably Czech or characterful as are, for example, our next guy, Dvořák. Yay! Well, for Dvořák, I decided to do something different because he pops up in so many of these lists because he was the most versatile and greatest genius type composer of the second half of the 19th century. I kid you not. So I chose an opera, Rusalka. It's time because Dvořák's Rusalka has returned. It has returned to the basic operatic repertory, and you have no idea just how hard that is for something to do that. I mean, it made it to the Met, that bastion of conservatism, unless they're doing something politically correct that they paid for themselves. But basically speaking, to have a romantic 19th century opera pop back into the general operatic repertoire when you have a really good soprano who can do the Song to the Moon and some other things like that, well, that's really special. That's really, really special. And it's gorgeous. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's just one luscious tune after another. It's totally marvelous. Then Suk, who was Dvořák's son-in-law, the Asrael Symphony, the Angel of Death. This was composed after Dvořák died, and his wife, who was Dvořák's daughter, Otilka was her name, Ottilie, she died as well. It was all within a very short period of time, and Suk was devastated. I mean, it changed his music forever after that, and he wrote a tetralogy of works where he worked out the grief that he was feeling. The first is Asrael. Next was A Summer Tale, then Ripening, and then Epilogue. Those are these 4 gigantic symphonic poems that become progressively more complex in terms of their orchestral texture and their use of counterpoint and their melodic feeling. And there's a tension in Suk between, his compositional virtuosity and his Czechitude, which is evident. It's evident in all of his work. But Asrael is a powerful, powerful, big, romantic hunk of heaving, screaming. It's an orchestral miasma. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful piece. Then Vítězslav Novák, who was also a Dvořák pupil, actually. Novák was an interesting composer. He did a lot of stuff. Very little is known, but he wrote tone poems and orchestral works and some terrific operas, and one of the greatest ballets of the 20th century, Nicotina, which I have talked about on numerous occasions. I think it's sort of out of print now, but my God, it's wonderful. And it's companion work, Signorina Gioventu, which is much more serious. Nicotina is a comic ballet about a snuff-addicted monk who hallucinates from his addiction, and Nicotina is the sexy, voluptuous female incarnation of his nicotine addiction. It's delightful. But I chose tone poem, Toman and the Wood Nymph. It's a popular story. We've done a talk. We did a video about nymphs. And Toman and the Wood Nymph is one of those, nymphs are bad for you. They go and they lure you and they seduce you, and you become this sort of hypnotized, drug-addicted layabout as a result of it. They ruin your life. They really do. Stay away from nymphs. It's a bad idea. Toman and the Wood Nymph is a famous Czech folktale which was set as a tone poem also by Fibich and probably dozens of other people who we don't know. Definitely worth hearing. His style, I've described him as sort of like the Czech Delius, but he has more rhythm than that. He really does. But his harmony is late, romantic, kind of decadent, and enlivened by his Czechosity. Is Czechalicious. It's absolutely marvelous. Then Mahler. Some of you just said, actually, I just got a comment saying, where's Mahler in the German list? Isn't he German? Well, he wasn't. And he didn't think of himself that way. Mahler described himself as a Bohemian among Austrian and Austrian among Germans and a Jew throughout the world. So, he's in the Jewish list. He belongs in the Czech list. He really does. That's where the Czech list. Yes, it's a Czech list. Get it? The Czech country list. There we go. No, Mahler was born in Bohemia in the German-speaking part, but so what? And the fact of the matter is his music always reflects his Czech/Jewish roots, nowhere more so than in the songs of a Wayfarer. We always use, big, huge Mahler symphonies, but his songs are glorious. They're some of the greatest songs ever written. There are only 42 of them. There's not like tons of them. And the songs of a Wayfarer, of course, appear in the first symphony. He subsumed them and reused the tunes, but it's his most Bohemian Czech-sounding work of all the things that he wrote. But, you hear it in everything. Most famously in the wonderful funeral march in Der Abschied in Das Lied von der Erde, in that middle interlude, where I think for the last time he revisits that klezmer, Slavic, Jewish, Czech, call it what you will, that sort of melos with that amazing tune with the wailing woodwinds. Oh God, it just reduces me to a quivering puddle. But the songs of a Wayfarer are youthful and fresh and passionate and full of great tunes and recognizably Czech in their tone. So that's where Mahler fits, folks. That's where he belongs. Janáček, Sinfonietta. Oh yeah, baby, do me. I could do an opera, of course, a Janáček opera, but he's in my list of operas I can't live without. And, his operas are just incredible. They really are. It's the great 20th century discovery was Janáček's operas because of because of Charles Mackerras, largely, they all entered the repertoire. All 5 of the suckers, the ones that are best known. A couple really great ones aren't there yet, like Mr. Bruchek and Fatum, Fate, and whatnot. But Yennefer, the Cunning Little Vixen, and Copacabana, the Macropolis Case of the House of the Dead, they're all active in the international repertoire, and that's unbelievable. But his late orchestral works, of which there are only like 2, I mean, there are a couple tone poems, but basically it's the Sinfonietta and Taras Bulba, the Rhapsody for Orchestra. They always come coupled together, or usually come coupled together on disc. So you're going to probably get one if you get the other. But the Sinfonietta for 14 trumpets and orchestra, whoa, baby! It's amazing. And it's incredible to compare Janáček's Sinfonietta for 14 trumpets and orchestra to something like Khachaturian's Third Symphony for like dozens of trumpets and orchestra. I mean, the Khachaturian is pure trash, and the Janáček is genius. I mean, what a difference a lot of brass makes in the hands of a composer who has that fascinating originality. I mean, Janáček is a force of nature in music. You know, just incredible stuff. And then Erwin Schulhoff, who had a wonderful series of discs devoted to his music on Supraphon, and also and CPO and a couple other things during the Entartete Musik craze about 20 years ago, when they were recording all of the banned Nazi, the music that the Nazis banned by mostly Jewish composers, of whom Schulhoff was one. There was a push to rediscover that music and at least get it on disc. And his first symphony is full of Czech folk music and crazy, interesting orchestration, like flexitones and weird percussion effects. It's a wonderful, fresh, neoclassical, Dadaist extravaganza. It really is. You should hear it. It's phenomenal. It's been recorded a couple of times. We could use a new one. We could actually, but the recordings that exist are pretty good. And wow, what fun! I mean, he wrote it as a piece of enjoyment music. It's something to just be entranced by, and it is extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And Martinu, of course, Martinu, good old Martinu. Oh, he's fabulous. He's another composer who's being rediscovered as we speak. His music seems to have penetrated the general repertoire, some of his concertos for sure. And I mean, his music works for chamber orchestra should be played daily. And his symphonies are fabulous. They're not getting as much play as they deserve to yet. I've only seen one done live by a major orchestra. That was Charles Dutoit in Montreal, did the 5th. He brought it to Carnegie Hall. It was a wonderful performance. I really, really would like to see them played more often, but I chose the 4th because that was the first one I played. I had my community orchestra. We did a couple Martinu symphonies. We did 1, we did 4, we did 2, I think also. They're just wonderful works. Absolutely delicious, beautiful, melodic, and they sound like nobody else. He was a great composer with a very, very personal voice. They perpetually syncopated rhythms and modal harmony often, and it's just great. And then we've got another Novak, Jan Novak, who is as different from Vítězslav as it's possible to be. He was a Janáček follower, or a Martinu follower, pardon me, let me get it straight. Martinu or Janáček? Well, kind of both, actually. More Martinu. That was his thing. And he wrote, I just recently reviewed, it just came out. I mean, his music has been slowly getting recorded on Supraphon and some other labels. And he lived until the 70s or 80s or something. I mean, he was around for a long time, but he wrote a piece called Choreae Vernales. It's a flute concerto, but it's for flute, string orchestra, harp, and celesta. And it is one of the most evocative, enchanting, incredible pieces you will ever hear. Unfortunately, the title, he was a Greek scholar, a Latin and Greek scholar, I think, mostly Latin. And so Choreae Vernales is sort of, he does Latin things all the time, show off that he was. And so nobody knows what that is. I mean, Vernales is spring-like, right? I mean, it's something like that. And Choreae is choruses or songs, and, I mean, we know what they are, but it's not going to tell you. If he called it Concerto for Flute, String Orchestra, Harp, and Celesta, then it would probably be more popular and would have been recorded before, like, last year. Damn it. But you really owe it to yourself to hear this thing. It is just exquisite. My God, it's beautiful. And last but not least, someone who you may not expect, but Korngold. Yes, good old Korngold is born in Brno. Brunn in the German language, if you were a German speaker there. But Korngold was a Czech composer. Yes, he was. There you go. Wound up in Austria. I mean, a lot of people wound up in Austria because, Vienna was the capital of things, although Prague didn't do badly. Remember, Prague was a former imperial capital as well. Korngold Symphony in F sharp major, a masterpiece of 20th century symphonism, and one that is still, crawling back into the repertoire. One marimba thud at a time. It's actually a tough piece. It's in F sharp major. Technically, it's mostly in the minor. It has this very strange motto theme, which is almost atonal sounding, punctuated by chords on the marimba and other things. It's really a powerful and passionate piece, where the typically Korngoldian, lush, delicious melodies, and it has its share, believe me, are offset by passages of real turbulence and austerity. It's not perhaps what you'd think when you think about Korngold, that Hollywood glitz and glamour, but it's quite a masterpiece. The scherzo's fabulous. It has one of those Korngold style superhero horn tunes. Da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Da 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 da. Harp glissando. Whoop! Oh, just tremendous. Anyway, there you have it. 16 Czech masterpieces I sure as heck couldn't live without. And I'm very interested to see your list as well. Go for it and keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.